The war continues. The Gotham docks were once proud portals of commerce and exploration. Now, they are stagnant pits of corruption and vice. Today on the Comic Book Report, Batman and the Monster Men by Matt Wagner. Stick around and check it out. Greetings from Gotham, everyone. My name is Dominic, and you're watching The Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. Today, in the Batcave, we'll be taking a look at Matt Wagner's classic Batman and the Monster Men, and I cannot wait to dive in. But first, some quick facts about today's collection. Batman and the Monster Men was written and illustrated by Matt Wagner. The issues in this collection were first published by DC Comics in 2006. The volume itself collects Batman and the Monster Men issues 1 through 6, and this trade paperback collection is 144 pages. At this time, I'd like to issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the entirety of today's collection and commenting on some plot points. You've been advised. Alright, without further ado, here is a look at today's collection. As I said, this is Batman and the Monster Men by Matt Wagner, and this is considered a volume 1 of his Dark Moon Rising series. And frankly, I'm not sure how many volumes are in that, but I know that a volume 2 is Batman and the Mad Monk, which I also have. So, if you'd love to hear a review on that, let me know in the comments below. Now let's get back to talking about this trade paperback. Like so many trade paperbacks, this is a standard size collection. The pages within are a light gloss with little gutter loss. And from the cover, you can get a good sense of Matt Wagner's Batman art style, which I think is spectacular. And with the cover out of the way, we can go ahead and get started jumping into the collection proper. Now, this is only a 6-issue story. Like I said, it's considered a volume 1 for that Dark Moon Rising arc that he does. However, I have to say, this is very much a standalone story. It feels very episodic in that you need very little information before reading it, and you can enjoy it for what it is without really the need to keep reading subsequent volumes if you didn't want to. Which creates a very low barrier of entry for those interested in Batman stories, but who maybe don't know the years and years and years of continuity. As for what the Batman and the Monster Men is about, it's basically a story that takes place early in the crime fighter's career, somewhere maybe just after Batman Year 1. Batman is not as sharp or as seasoned as he will be at the height of his career. This is before Robin and before some of the emergence of his rogues gallery. And yet, this young Batman is still definitively Batman. In this context, the story unfolds with so many characters under the thumb of organized crime, under Sal Maroni, and to a greater extent, Carmine Falcone. We follow Batman, his girlfriend's father, and of course, the villainous Professor Hugo Strange. Across a fairly layered narrative where we get several point of view characters, as I just mentioned, we see one man trying to get out from under the loan sharks that he indebted himself to, accepting money from the mob, this of course being Batman's girlfriend's father. We see the more or less oblivious daughter who is really enamored with Bruce Wayne, though she suspects he might have some secrets from her. And we have the villainous Professor Hugo Strange, who himself has accepted money from the mob in order to fund his crazy genetic projects, where he's trying to create a superior human from genetic therapy, but is instead creating these brutish monsters. And of course, in the midst of all of this, we have Batman trying to unravel who is behind these monsters, who is behind these organized crime dealings, and how to best stop them all. The story itself is of course much more polished than my brief synopsis I gave, and probably flows much more smoothly. I think one of Matt Wagner's greatest strengths is that we get a very clear understanding of the characters and their voices. We also get to see a rare glimpse into a young and almost happy Bruce Wayne, who finds some solace and joy in the arms of his girlfriend, but who is of course first called by his mission and sense of duty. We also get a fantastic origin reintroduction to the character of Professor Hugo Strange, and Wagner does much to give him a very clear sense of believable motivations. Another thing that must be mentioned is Wagner's superior artistry. The artwork in here is beyond belief. It's very clean pencil work that is somehow still visceral and gritty. I get that sense of noir motifs and visual styles, which I think always serve Batman perfectly. The art is rich in atmosphere and almost grotesque in its sense of violence, which both serve the storytelling masterfully. I found myself nearly in awe as I went page to page trying to remember this mystery from this book I had personally read almost a decade ago. And I was absolutely tickled to find I still find Batman and the Monster Men to be a kind of classic. While I was familiar with Matt Wagner prior to reading this, my personal knowledge of his greater bibliography leaves a little bit to be desired. I've read the DC Trinity stuff with Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, as well as some of his early work on Grendel. I cannot say that Grendel really is my cup of tea. It's a little too graphic for my taste. This DC work, though, is hard to beat. I also think there's a special kind of novelty to classic Batman stories that take place early in the hero's career. Batman just feels more accessible, as he's a bit more fallible and young, if a little naive. And when you have someone who has the storytelling and visual chops of a Matt Wagner, this is a recipe for success, and I saw it play out page after page. Have you read Matt Wagner's Batman and the Monster Men? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Or feel free to comment anything that you wish. As we get ready to close the collection here, I think it's time to give this book a grade. For its impeccable art style, effective use of multiple point of view characters, and an intriguing detective storyline through it all, this impeccable early years Batman story, Batman and the Monster Men, receives an A- from the Comic Book Report. As I said, I believe this is a Batman classic that deserves space on any collector's bookcase. And with that, this has been the Comic Book Report. Thank you for watching, consider subscribing, and checking out some of my other videos. Until next time, have a good one.